Hey folks, the problem with the blind old lady, also known as the crazy old lady, or even the lost boarding pass problem, all depending on your views on ableism, ageism and sexism I guess, is a probability puzzle well known to be asked in quantitative interviews. The nature of the problem is as follows. 100 passengers are standing in a queue waiting to board a plane. Each passenger has been assigned a unique seat in the plane, which is running at full capacity. The passengers board the plane one by one. Now suppose the first passenger to board the plane is an old blind lady who, refusing any help, decides to pick her seat uniformly at random. All other passengers will sit in their respective seat unless they find that it has already been taken. If a passenger finds his or her seat to be occupied, he or she will in turn pick a seat uniformly at random. What is the probability that the final passenger, henceforth assumed male, gets to sit in his assigned seat? If you want to have a go at this problem, please pause the video now. If you're still with me, let's first summon some notational convention. So we have 100 passengers in total, and we're going to be labeling from 1 through 100, with 1 being the old lady and 100 being the final passenger. Likewise, for the seats, we also have seats 1 through 100, and we're going to arrange it so that passenger 1 sits in seat 1, passenger 2 sits in seat 2, etc. Now, let OI be the event that the old lady chooses to sit in seat number I. Furthermore, let F be the event that the final passenger gets to sit in his assigned seat. Finally, let P sub n of F be the probability of event F when there is a totality of n passengers. It'll be helpful to consider this more general case. Great, so let's solve the problem, simplifying as much as possible, starting out with just 2 passengers, and then we will be using the law of total probability, effectively conditioning on all possible choices made by the old lady. For starters, for n equals 2, we have that P sub 2 of F equals P sub 2 of F given O1 into P sub 2 of O1 plus P sub 2 of F given O2, P sub 2 of O2. Now the probability that the final passenger sits in his seat, given that the old lady sits in her own seat, is clearly 1. Meanwhile, the probability that the final passenger sits in his own seat, given that the old lady is in that seat, is obviously 0. Finally, of course, the old lady chooses her seats uniformly at random, so PO1 and PO2 are just going to be a half. So let's quickly write that down. This is 1, this is going to be a half, this is 0, and this is going to be a half again. Altogether, we have a half as a probability. Now let's consider the case when we have 3 total passengers. Again, we do the decomposition. P sub 3 of F is P sub 3 of F given O1 times P sub 3 of F O1 plus P sub 3 of F given O2, P sub 3 of F O2 plus P sub 3 of F given O3, P sub 3 of O3. Now if the blind old lady is in her own seat, then the final passenger gets his own seat with probability 1. Meanwhile, if the old lady is in the final passenger seat, surely he will have to sit in the old lady's seat. Meanwhile, of course, the old lady chooses her seat with probability 1 over 3. So let's quickly write that down. We have a third, and a third again. This one over here is going to be just 1, and this term over here is going to be 0. Now, the only truly interesting case is when the blind old lady sits in the second passenger's seat. Notice that when the second passenger boards the plane, he or she will either pick the old lady's seat and the final passenger gets to sit in his own seat, or the second passenger will pick the final passenger's seat, in which case the final passenger will sit in the little blind old lady's seat. Viewed jointly, this situation is exactly equivalent to the 2-person case we dealt with before. Only here it is the second passenger who takes on the role of the blind old lady. Formally, P sub 3 of F given O2 is p sub 2 of f, which is equal to a half. Altogether we have a third plus a half of a third, leading to the conclusion that p sub 3 of f equals a half. As an exercise, the viewer might want to show this for n equals 4 as well, that is, p sub 4 of f is also equal to a half. Now at this point we may reasonably conjecture that the result holds for all n, that is, p sub n of f is a half for n equals 2, 3, 4, etc. And this turns out to be the case, and we will show that using strong induction. As a reminder, the steps for strong induction are as follows. Step 1, we show that the base case p sub 2 of f equals a half. And next, we assume that the result holds for all the cases between 2 and k passengers, that is, all of these probabilities are going to be equal to a half. And show that this jointly implies that the result also holds for k plus 1 total passengers. Finally, we conclude that this result holds for any number of passengers, that is to say, p sub n of f equals a half for any n greater than 2. Now we have already verified the first step, so we can drop straight to the second, which is p sub k plus 1 of f, which we use the law of total probability to decompose as follows. I equals 1 to k plus 1 of p sub k plus 1 of f given oi into p sub k plus 1 of oi. We'll take out the first and the last term in the sum, so p sub k plus 1 of f given O1, p sub k plus 1 of O1, plus sum over I equals 2 up to k, p sub k plus 1 of f given oi, p sub k plus 1 given oi, plus the final term, which is p sub k plus 1 of f given ok plus 1, p sub k plus 1 of ok plus 1. Following the logic from before, the first conditional probability is just 1, the final conditional probability is 0, and the little old lady chooses her seat with probability 1 over k plus 1. Now the only interesting cases are the terms in the middle. If the old lady sits in seat I, then it is passenger I plus 1 who acts as the old lady in a plane with k plus 1 minus I plus 1 empty seats. The conditional probability of f is therefore just the unconditional probability with k plus 2 minus I total passengers. Rephrasing, the old lady still picks her seat with uniform probability. Meanwhile, the conditional probability of f given oi, well, that's gonna be p sub k plus 1 minus I plus 1 of f. That's p sub k plus 2 minus I of f, which is equal to a half by the inductive hypothesis. So what do we have? Well, the first term is just going to be 1 over k plus 1. Then we're going to have a sum that runs from I equals 2 up to k of a half multiplied by 1 over k plus 1. Now this is quickly evaluated to 1 over k plus 1 as before, plus a half 1 over k plus 1, and then of course from the sum we are getting k minus 1. Continuing our simplification, this amounts to k plus 1 in the numerator divided by 2 into k plus 1, which is of course nothing but a half. In other words, QED, all the probabilities are equal to a half. So this is a rather remarkable result. Using recursion, we have shown that it doesn't really matter how many seats there are on the plane. Under the problem formulation, the probability that the final passenger gets his assigned seat is always a half. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe.